Mr. Creme, you are most welcome in our program again.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Apart from being the chief editor of Share International, the monthly paper, you have written quite some books, about 13, and recently you have written another one, The World Teacher for All Humanity. What's the need of writing this book, and in what way does it differ from the others?
Well, it differs insofar as the words in it are not mine. I edited the words. The words, the information within it comes from the world teacher, the Lord Maitreya, the master of all the masters, who is, from my understanding and experience, in the world, in the everyday world, and about to begin his outer mission. His mission is going on whether we see him or not, but to work openly in full public view needs a recognition by humanity that this is a fact, this is something that they can see. And my task over 30-odd years has been to prepare the world to some extent, to create the climate of hope, of expectancy for his coming, so that he can enter our lives without infringing our free will. Humanity has free will, and it is sacrosanct to the masters of our spiritual hierarchy, of which Maitreya is the head, and so is never infringed by the masters. We infringe each other's free will, no problem. We invade other countries, we do terrible things to each other, and because we don't understand the laws which govern life. And that book is teaching by Maitreya about how to live, what living is about. It's called The Art of Living.
That was the former one, The Art of Living.
Oh yeah, this one
is the World Teacher for All Humanity.
Yes, that is Maitreya. And inside are some of the teachings, preliminary teachings, which have been given over the years, and I have edited them together and produced this book to prepare at the last moment, to prepare more of humanity.
You said the last moment.
Yes, because we understand that the coming out into the open of Maitreya is very close. I can't give a precise date, but very close indeed. Whereas he has been living in London since July 1977. So it's 30 years that he has been here, and awaiting the opportunity to come forward. And that opportunity is presented by humanity when we are ready. There is a law governing this. If Maitreya came unannounced, unknown to humanity, it would be an infringement of our free will. I and all those who work with me in different parts of the world have done their best over the last 30 years to make it known. And it's been more or less successful, but not by a long way does everybody in the world know about the presence of Maitreya, or even to know the name Maitreya. Name Maitreya is a Buddhist term. 2,600 years ago, the Buddha then, through his disciple, the Gautama. So there are many Buddhas, and this was Gautama Buddha, the one Gautama being a prince, Prince Gautama, who stood in for the Buddha, and the Buddha worked through him, just as 600 years later, Maitreya worked through his disciple, Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth was a disciple of Maitreya. and Maitreya overshadowed him, as it's called. His consciousness entered into that of Jesus, and for 3 years at the end of Jesus' life, when people saw and heard Jesus, they were hearing the thoughts, the ideas of Maitreya.
And the back cover of this new book, you write, "A hero, a titan is in our midst, and soon will we awaken to his presence." And we are humanity. Are we asleep? Because will awaken implies that we are asleep. In what way are we asleep?
Yes, but yes, we are asleep. We don't know about the existence of Maitreya. This is the amazing thing. Maitreya is the head of the most important group of men in the world, the most advanced, the most evolved, the most divine. We're all divine, but there are degrees of divinity. They are perfected as far as humanity on this planet can be perfected. We are here and they are somewhere up here, the masters, and he is the master of all the masters. So he's unbelievably evolved, so pure, so evolved that he can embody in himself the love of God. This is an extraordinary advancement which is very difficult for humanity to understand. But even the presence of such a being in the world is unknown to the vast majority of humanity. I've been working for 6 years to make this known, traveling the world and starting groups all over the world and so on. And yet I have probably made known to something like 30 million people about the existence of Maitreya and the masters and their return to the everyday world. And there are 6.7 billion people in the world, so it's a tiny proportion. Mm-hmm. But of that tiny proportion, of that 30 million, something like 20 million, it's like every second person, Mm-hmm. So it's like out of 2 people, one of them has an open mind to this experience, this understanding. Mm-hmm. One probably doesn't know anything about it. The others don't know, not sure, but they have an open mind. That's 2 out of 3 people. So it's a lot of people, and maybe 2+ million people totally believe it, work with it, try to make it known, and so on. So I'm not alone in this. There's a big group in the world who've made it their own task to make known this information. So it's a way of awakening humanity to this. Mm. But in English, when you say humanity is awakening or has to awaken, it implies that they're asleep, but it's a way of saying it in English. It's not an exact thing,
As in Dutch.
Yeah, well, if you don't know something and then you're told it, you've awakened to it.
But still, that means that humanity is doing some things wrong. It's not living well.
You only have to look around the world to see what we're doing wrong. How many wars are going on in the world just now? How much terrorism in the world? How many people are starving to death in the midst of masses of food? Food in the Western world was stored away, which is wasted, so that millions die in the world for lack of the food which is rotting in the storehouses of the West. It's so corrupt, it is so against life that it needs someone to come and to wake humanity up and say, how can you do this? How can you watch people on television dying before your eyes, And it's all right, you feel good about it. You feel, well, I'm glad it's not me. I'm glad it's not my family. This is not seeing yourself as part of humanity. And we're all part of humanity. Humanity is really a group, one group, like brothers, a family, different colours, different traditions, different religions, many different differences. But these differences are nothing compared with what unites and defines humanity. And that is that each one of us is a soul who incarnates the world over and over and over again, and by so doing evolves to a point of perfection where they don't have to incarnate anymore. Now the masters have reached that point. The masters of wisdom, of which Maitreya is the leader, the head, are men just like us who have evolved to the point where they are perfected as far as planet Earth is concerned. Many of them stay on the planet, luckily from our point of view. It's lucky because they have great responsibility to show humanity, to look after the lower kingdoms, help their evolution and so on, and to help humanity evolve to the point that they have reached. And at this stage in our lives, to understand what is preventing humanity from living in correct relationship. War is wrong relationship. Terrorism is wrong relationship. Starvation in the midst of plenty is wrong relationship. And every soul comes into incarnation with the primal purpose of creating right human relationships. But if millions incarnate and then spend the time competing and creating barriers and fighting other religions and other nations, for what reason? To get their oil or to get their land or their gold or whatever it is, then you don't have right relationships. Competition is against right human relations. Now, you mentioned soccer and football and cricket and so on. Does that mean there will be no competition? When I say competition, I mean competition in the big things of life. Competition about food, competition about selling your goods at a lower price than in other countries so that you get the market, and the competition to get markets in the first place and to keep those markets and to make your goods with the smallest margin the biggest margin of profit for the smallest output in making it, And
you just told me that people are of divine origin, that their souls are divine. But so a lot of education has to be done. What has the average man or humanity to know about his origin, the laws which rule their lives?
That's precisely. And there are two major laws. The law of cause and effect, which in the East is called the law of karma, and the law of rebirth. These are the two governing laws. There are many other laws, but these are the most important laws. And most people don't know anything about it. In the East, they will believe in rebirth. Many people, Buddhists and Hindus and so on, all can believe in rebirth. Even they don't really understand the mechanism of rebirth. They think that you shouldn't tread on an ant or a fly because it could be your grandmother reincarnated, Well, it doesn't work like that. If once you're a human being, man or woman, you reincarnate as a man or woman. Sometimes as a man, sometimes a woman, depending on the purpose of the incarnation. But it is the soul who incarnates. We are only a reflection of the soul. And we are a good or a bad reflection. If we are not very evolved, the soul cannot express itself through our personality. If our personality is too warped, too selfish, too greedy, too out of touch, out of sorts, too destructive, the soul is useless, not useless in itself, but finds that it cannot express itself through the personality that it has incarnated into. So we are only a vehicle for the soul, but we have to change the quality of the personality, life after life, in order for the soul to express more and more correctly its divinity through the personality. When it does it perfectly, the man or woman is a master. When it's imperfect, it's like all of us, we are all imperfect. Not sin, it's imperfection. And the Masters don't talk much about sin, they talk about imperfection. They see humanity, they love humanity, they see the potential of all humanity, they see us as gods. And we are gods because we are souls. And the soul is divine because it's a direct reflection of the divine spark. The divine spark cannot manifest correctly in matter. And we are matter, but we not only matter. We are at the point where matter and the opposite of matter, light or the spiritual aspect, meet. Below that, it's matter. It's all matter. Potential, of course, in all living creatures is the capacity to become perfect. Their aspiration drives them forward in incarnation. And incarnation after incarnation, you should be able to evolve. That's not to say that everybody does, because you can sit back and be very destructive, or you can sit back and do nothing, not good, not bad, just nothing, and hold yourself back. But if once the soul makes its impress in the person at a certain stage in the involution of the person, then from then on there's no turning back. You might not in every incarnation make much progress, but you've been touched by the spirit aspect, the life of the soul, and so sooner or later you come back to the task of evolving into the perfection of the soul. It's the soul which is the perfecting factor, because in each life the individual increases the rate of vibration of its vehicles. The physical, the emotional, the mental vehicles are made up of stuff, and these vibrate. It's all light. Everything is energy. There's nothing in the world but energy. Everything. And our modern science has come to the same understanding as the ancient teaching of the masters for thousands and thousands of years. All is energy. But that energy is acted upon by thought. And so it's an active principle. And when I say energy, it's not like, the energy that makes you feel good and you can run, not that kind of but energy of myriad numbers of qualities, of forces, of ideas, of tendencies, of possibilities. And that energy is gradually controlled by the individual. And he controls his physical body, he controls his emotional body, he controls eventually his mental body, and then the soul can really work through that mental body. And that is the last few lives of the evolutionary process is covered by 5 great expansions of consciousness. And each one gives the initiate, because by then he is becoming, these expansions of consciousness are called initiation, and each one confers on the initiate a deeper and deeper insight into the mind of the Logos, the heavenly man, who ensouls the planet. And we are ideas in the mind of the heavenly men.
So our people should be aware of our planet being a living being.
Absolutely.
And that's
Our
what they
planet
don't
is a
know
living-
too.
Our planet is dying. It is very, very ill because humanity, in its ignorant way, has created 80% of the present global warming and all the other pollution that goes on in the planet. All of that is due to human action. Some people, like Mr. Bush, deny that global warming is a reality, but everybody else in the world almost knows that this planet is warming up, and this has terrible reaction in the tides, the melting of the poles, and so on. Everybody sees this. The glaciers are melting away before people's eyes, that would take hundreds of years to lose an inch or something. They now lose yards, meters in a few days. It's happening so quickly. And a country like Holland is under threat because, Holland is either
Below the sea level.
just above sea level or even under sea level.
Especially the coastal area.
It only takes a slight rise in the waters of the world to inundate Holland, parts of Britain, some islands in the Pacific and so on, would completely disappear.
Is this a reason for Maitreya to emerge?
It's one of the reasons why Maitreya is in the world now, to warn humanity, because they know what to do. The masters know the answers, but we have to do it. And we will say, I'm sure, to them, well, what do we do, We've been trying, we talk about the, your footprint, how much gases are you creating in the atmosphere, carbon gases. And it's only an idea that people can hardly grasp what they do. They don't know how to do it. But we have to simplify our lives. What we're doing, we're destroying so many trees in the planet. This is one of the major destructive agencies in the planet, the destruction of our primal forests. Our oxygen comes from these trees. The vegetable kingdom is a major source of our oxygen supply, and also they absorb carbon dioxide. So they give us oxygen, we give out carbon dioxide, the vegetable kingdom absorb the carbon dioxide, and it's not building great clouds in the atmosphere that heats up the earth. It doesn't create the greenhouse event, which is happening now all over the world. So it's no threat. But if you get rid, there is a point beyond which you must not cut any more trees. Or if you do, you have to replace them. Every tree that's cut down has to be replaced. And today, swathes of land everywhere in the world, in Indonesia, in Brazil, and many, many places, huge acreages are felled to grow peanuts or something,
Soya beans.
to feed soya beans or something to feed the cattle, for people to eat. Well, if people didn't eat the cattle, they wouldn't need to grow so much food for the cattle. They could grow the food for the people who are starving. But they don't even need to create more food. There is a superfluity of food in the world of 10% per capita. And there's no need, therefore, for one child in the world to die of starvation. They might die of pollution and many other diseases, but not of starvation.
But still people don't like to share. They are
Well, that's the
complacent.
point.
But will Maitreya's emergence force them to do that?
No, it won't force them. Maitreya never uses force. Never. never under any, you might say, they might feel like doing so. Never. They understand the law so completely. It would never arise in them to use force to get humanity to do the right thing. They teach. They are teachers. They teach humanity, and they give the energy to humanity, the inspiration to humanity, but it's up to humanity to respond.
You are speaking about they, Maitreya, and who is they?
And his group, the masters. The masters are not as evolved as Maitreya, but they are unbelievably evolved, you know. He is just even more evolved than that's why he is the leader.
Another thing that people don't know is their position on this planet. I mean, we are part of a big cosmos, and some people have sightings of UFOs, and so does that have any relationship with us?
Indeed. Without these UFOs being present on our planet, this planet would probably not be livable in. It would be so much harder, so disease and the effects of imbalance in the planet would be so drastic that I doubt if we could live, many people could live on the planet. Even today, the masters see pollution as the number one killer in the world, especially pollution in the form of nuclear radiation. We build atomic plants all over the planet. We experiment, everybody's making bombs, There's supposed to be 9 nations that have a bomb. Actually, there are 28 nations who have an atomic bomb under the counter, and disclosed. But we don't understand very much about energies. Our scientists, we think, are very clever, but compared with the people on some other planets, or even our own spiritual hierarchy, the masters, they don't begin. They're like children, They don't know anything. They understand 3 levels of matter: solid physical, liquid physical, and gaseous physical. That's all they do. And they make their instruments to measure that. But it is a false measurement, because there are not only 3 levels of matter. There are 7 levels of matter. There's 3: solid physical, liquid physical, gaseous physical, and above gas, 4 further, finer and finer etheric levels of matter. And these they have no way of measuring. And it is the atomic energy at those higher etheric levels that does the most damage. And it is crucial to the health of humanity that this stops. They have to stop all atomic experimentation, because they don't understand it, they don't have the technology to measure it, and they are blind. It's like the blind leading the blind, And that is how we go. And governments are now discussing the creation of more and more atomic energy as global warming goes on. So they want more and more what they call safe energy. Now, atomic energy is the least safe of all forms of energy. And one of the reasons why Maitreya and the masters are here in the world now is because we don't understand this, and so many nations have atomic bombs, and that if there is a major war, it would be an atomic war. And that atomic war would destroy all life, human and subhuman, on planet Earth. This planet would become totally devoid of life for millions of years.
And have the Space Brothers
a
task in this?
They have a task of controlling this. They, to the extent that karma allows, the law of karma allows, they mop up and neutralize as much of the atomic and other pollution that they can, especially atomic energy, because we don't even know it exists. And they are now thinking of sending up the muck that is the result of the use of atomic energy, all the waste. They don't know what to do with the waste. It's polluting the earth, and so they think of putting it up into rockets, up into the atmosphere, and they don't know what. They think they'll take care of it for a few 100 years or 50 years, till they're dead and they don't have to bother about it, It's so destructive, and we don't know what we're doing. And that is, whereas we live on a planet, but that planet is not isolated. It's an integral part of our solar system. And there are planets at all different levels of advancement in the solar system. And Earth, for all the ideas that people on Earth have about themselves as being the only people who can think and who are human on this solar system, all the planets, all of them, without exception, are peopled. They all have their inhabitants, who, of course, if you went to Mars, you would see nobody. If you went to Venus, the same. You see nothing. You couldn't live in this physical body on Mars or Venus. But the people of Mars and Venus can live because they live on the etheric levels, above what we would call gas, So on the finer and finer etheric levels, their reality is their reality. They see and hear and talk and communicate and build their UFOs and so on.
I mean, are they male and female too, and do they marry?
Male and female, and have I don't know if they call it marry, but they have a relationship to each other, and they prolong their work, and they are totally consciously involved in what we would call evolution, the evolution of their own planet, and some of them are near perfection. Venus, for example, is at the end of its evolutionary journey. We are just about halfway through. And the beauty is that at halfway it begins to speed up. So the masters come back into the world, who've never left the world, but to live among us, known to us, and this will have a tremendous effect in speeding up the evolution.
So the masters and Maitreya are related to the Space Brothers.
They are in touch all the time. And today, people will see more and more UFOs. Where they saw one, they will see a dozen. Where they saw a dozen, they will see 24, 200, thousands at a time. And this is happening now all over the world. My master calls it the gathering of the forces of light. And the forces of light is our spiritual hierarchy of the masters, and those of the mainly Mars and Venus, our nearest planets. There are other planets involved, but the main involvement is with Venus, which is seen as the alter ego of Earth, and Mars, where all the UFOs are made. Most of these UFOs are made on Mars, and they're made by thought. And we can see them if they bring down the rate of vibration to come within our visible sight. And when they disappear, which they do, they just lift the vibration, and they're not any longer visible. But they're there.
Then they leave.
They live under the laws of life.
I mean, when they visit us, they do something to us. They leave some sign on crop fields.
They do. The crop circles are like their visiting card. We were here, and they do this because it's seasonal. They cut down the corn, and the crop circle disappears, and then comes back next year. They come again. They do more and more and more, and they are the most fantastic, elaborate patterns which are created by bending the corn like that in various ways. It's all thought out and applied, the idea applied to the machinery, if you like to call it machinery, of the UFO, and in a few seconds, it happened like that.
But I also understand that they help planet Earth with our problems on pollution.
But for their action, we couldn't live on planet Earth. It is so polluted. The air, the waters, the rivers, the oceans, the soil, everything is polluted with chemicals of all kinds and with nuclear radiation, which is the worst, the real killer. You know, there's a greater and greater amount of Alzheimer's disease being found in the world, and at a younger and younger age. It used to be a disease for old people. Now people in their 40s or 50s have Alzheimer's. For what reason, nobody knows. It's the effect of nuclear radiation, which affects the mental body, and more people are made to die before their time.
Can you explain why
this was
you give so much attention on
this is the hand
lectures?
of matter.
Yeah.
This was imparted like a. If you put your hand on a glass or a mirror, say, it would leave, where your hand is there and there and there and then a few pieces there. But this is a full three-dimensional photograph. But it was put by thought on a mirror in Barcelona, in
Spain,
one of my colleagues' places. And it's given by Maitreya to allow people to ask for his help. He said, my help is yours to command. You have only to ask. And if people simply look at the hand, they don't have to do anything special, just look at it and ask Maitreya. They don't know Maitreya. They don't know what he looks like, but they know what the hand looks like. And that activates, when they look at it and ask for his help, it alerts Maitreya's attention to them. He is omniscient and omnipresent. A canary cannot fall to earth. He doesn't know about it, So it just alerts his attention, and they ask for help if they're ill or whatever is the problem. And if the law allows, the karmic law allows, he will help. And that's why it's given. Millions of these have been distributed all over the world, and people use them. Some people put them under the pillow, or they have pain and they put it on the pain. They don't need to do that, they only need to ask for help.
Okay, we are nearing the end of this talk. I want to look at this hand and ask for a blessing.
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, you don't need to ask the hand. Yes.
A blessing for the audience.
A blessing for the audience, yeah. A blessing from Maitreya. He overshadows me, and it will go into the tape.
Yeah.
And when the tape is played, that energy will be released again and again, every time it's played.
1 minute.
My dear friends, I am close to you now. Many of you have awaited my presence for a long time. I am about to step forward openly before all men and to begin my outer mission. There is no distance between us. Know this. Understand this. When you ask me through the hand or directly to me for help, that help, you should know, is assured. It is possible that you will not recognize that the help has been given, but so it will be. Trust me to aid you, for it is to do so that I come. I shall exhort you to work with me for the good of all. This is the opportunity for you to grow quicker, faster than you have ever done before, and so bring you to the feet of that one whom we call God. Be not afraid of the many problems which arise now almost daily in the world. These events are transient, and soon men will come to understand that they have before them a future bathed in light. So will it be. Voila.
Thank you very much, Mr. Creme.
You got a message as well.